Good morning, everyone. We'll make a start. Welcome to this morning's Economy, Infrastructure and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And it's Thursday, the 30th of January. Welcome, everyone. We'll go into the first item agenda, which is apologies.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, Committee. Apologies received from Councillor Ward.
Thank you. And we haven't got Councillor Hood. And Councillor Williams is missing. Okay, no apologies received. Okay. Any declarations of interest from members? Okay. The minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of January 2025, that was literally 3 weeks ago. Are they a true record of events? Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Charlotte?
No, I wasn't obviously here, so I can't move them. But I just picked up an item on the minutes, which basically said that the 6-month update on the bus strategy was going to be coming to this committee, and it doesn't appear to be on the agenda for this committee.
Jacob, have you got the update on that?
Thank you very much, Councillor. I will look into that, but as far as I'm aware, it is on the agenda. So I will double check that and report back to committee.
So do we have a mover and a seconder for the minutes? Don't all jump at once. Pippa? Do you want to second them, Peter? Oh, he wasn't here. Somebody that was here? David? Can you second the minutes from the last meeting? Thank you very much. I'm pulling things today. Right, we'll move on to item 4 then, which is the Highways Transformation Programme Recovery Plan and Performance Update. Over to yourself, Councillor Mark DeVille.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks for inviting us along today. I think it's a really good timing and a good opportunity to give you an update on where we are with the transformation, probably more importantly for local members, where we are with the Fixing More Roads campaign, which is still going ahead at speed. And then we brought Tim along with us, who is also going to give, I think it'd be very useful if Tim gives us a demonstration. We have a chat about the new reporting system, which is working very well. So Tim will do that, if that's okay, members, after we've finished the discussions on Fixing More Roads. So making great progress. There's a tremendous amount of work being done since we launched the recovery programme back in March, April last year. Back in March, we could see that, we had a real problem. Not just in Staffordshire, of course, across the nation, we had a real problem with our highways. So we made a very quick decision to invest considerable additional funds into our highways. And a bit of a new approach, a more razor-like focus on urgency and things that really matter to the customer, so repairs that really matter to the customer. And I hope you would agree we've made great progress. There's a lot more work to do, but the programme is going very, very well. So by the end of this financial year, we will have repaired 35,000 potholes, which is a tremendous improvement on last year. We'll have emptied 60,000 gullies. And I think importantly, because they are numbers that don't really matter to our customers, but what really do matter to our customers is that they see considerable activity out on the roads, repairing the roads. That leads to some frustrations around traffic controls and road works, but you have to offset that with the work that's being done. And we do take the use of traffic controls and delays very, very seriously, and we regret them, but obviously that's just a situation from having considerable extra works out on our Staffordshire highways. So importantly, members, we've completed 37 resurfacing schemes. Now, they are works where local residents can see a massive difference when we completely resurface a road. It's works that are carried out covering a big area and a really good quality of workmanship. And I think even more importantly, we've done 587 roads that have been surface dressed. And again, really good for customer satisfaction, really good for the improvement of our local roads, but I think even more importantly, really good for the longevity of our highways asset. These works can last up to 20 years, so it really looks after the asset that we've got. Of course, alongside the works that we've been doing on repairs, we've had a massive winter operation this year. We were hoping that this winter wasn't going to be as bad as last winter. Indications are that it's going to be every bit as bad, with 5 named storms already this winter, and a really prolonged cold snap over the Christmas period. Obviously, the gritters have been out and have covered 25,000 miles of winter gritting routes in a 10-day period over the Christmas period, just before and just after Christmas. So really intense winter operations, and I received an email from Dave Rushton this morning about gritting operations up in the moorlands last night. You know, it's below zero, as you probably saw when you were scraping your car this morning. And the gritters were out last night. We've also, and then I'm going to ask James to run through a presentation to give you sort of background to the improvements that we've made. But we've also had a really big emphasis on better communications. That's better communications to you, the members, through newsletters, divisional and district newsletters, emails, press releases. Like if we put the Pothole Pro out, it's up in Leek today, Charlotte, the Pothole Pro is. So, you know, yeah, well, worth waiting for, though, can assure you. A lot of press releases around the work of the Pothole Pro. Pothole Pro's been really effective. We've found that we operated in a slightly different way than Stoke operate their Pothole Pro. They get their machine out, tend to get their machine out repairing potholes, don't they? Individual potholes from one to another to another. It works well. We've found with experience that it performs better on large surface areas, so the larger areas. So we tend to have it out on where there's large areas to resurface and preparation work for surface dressing. And it's up in Leek this week. So we've had a big emphasis on better communications. I think we needed to improve. We're doing a lot of work and we needed to tell you what we were doing, tell members, and more importantly, members of the public, what we're doing. So Gemma Stiles has done a tremendous job. She's really hands-on. She's worked really closely with us, hasn't she, Darryl, right through this. And I hope that you're seeing much improved communications, because we had to, basically. So are we in a better place than this time last year? Certainly. Much more work is needed. You know, winter has taken its toll. We were hoping for a gentler winter. It hasn't happened, so it's taken its toll on the roads. But number of claims are down at this moment in time over last year considerably. We have those figures. Number of reports are down. Number of complaints are down, and the customer service, customer experience index is up. So are we in a better place? Yes, we are. Is there much more work to do? Yes, there is. So just before I hand over to James and we go through the presentation, I did ask in March, April last year that we also take a look at sort of the culture of the way that we operate the service, and wanted to focus more on customer requirements, be more customer focused, and have a greater sense of urgency. And I think we have. I think the lads out on and ladies out on the front line really do have a good focus on customer service. A really good example of that when we were doing some repairs down in Codsall. You may have seen the TV reports about they termed it the most potholed road in the UK. So we did a complete repair on that road with a road closure. And our officers were really working hand in hand with all the residents down there, opening bollard gates to let residents in and out of the closed area. Really worked well. I was watching it very closely. They worked really well with local residents. So I think, and I'm happy to say, that there has been a bit of a culture shift. There has been a change of attitude where we are focused on customer requirements. We've got a razor focus on getting the works done. You can see that more works has been done, and we've got a real sense of urgency around the way that we've done works. So, massive improvements. I'm really pleased. Is there much more to do? Absolutely. There's a lot more to do, and there's no complacency at all with any of the team about further improvements that we need to make. But we'll go through that later. So I'll ask James to take you through the presentation on where we are now, where we want to be. Any questions, I suggest we just chip in as and when, Chairman. And then Tim will give us a really interesting presentation on the new reporting scheme. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry.
Chairman, I didn't know whether you want to ask questions now or on marked comments.
No, we're going to do the presentation and then bring you in at the end.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Councillor DeVille, for the introduction. The Fixing More Roads title, obviously, is the title that's captured in the County Council Strategic Plan. It is a top priority for the County Council. It also covers, there are a number of different moving parts within it, though, so it's a catch-all term to cover a lot of activity. So I'm going to try and just go through this presentation and cover those off. I am intending to lead off with the update on the recovery plan, which committee members will remember they contributed to the shaping and challenging of back in the summer. And the recovery plan focuses on potholes and drainage activity, which is really front and centre of most people's minds at this time of year, and particularly after the difficulties we faced around about this time last year, after one of the most challenging, or during one of the most challenging winters, or the most challenging winter, shall I say, in 186 years of records. I'll then update on the progress of the major investment capital maintenance programme before sharing the latest headlines on the new communication strategy, which Councillor DeVille's already just referred to, and then I'll also round up with a little update on the progress and the next steps of the remaining transformation activity. Excuse me. So the recovery plan, as I say, was of course considered by Select Committee in the summer, and it lays the groundwork for a much better operational response during this current winter and thereafter. As a very quick recap, there are 4 primary aims to the recovery plan, which are summarised there. Firstly, to improve that response time to our high-risk defects, which at this time last year, you remember, had more than doubled compared to the year prior to that. Secondly, to get back on top and manage the spiralling growth in the backlog of lower risk defects. Thirdly, to recover the drainage performance, including getting on track with the cyclical maintenance activities around gully cleansing, which had fallen behind during that sort of really busy period. And finally, to improve the network resilience and our operational response on the ground to the inevitable effects of climate change. Beneath is the summary of the key elements. I won't go through those, but that's just a quick recap of how that recovery plan was funded and mobilised. And as Councillor Dill's already summarised, through all that activity since the 1st of April to a couple of weeks ago when this data was captured, we've now cleared off nearly 30,000 different potholes repaired, averaging about 150 a day. That's a 30% increase on the same period last year. Excuse me. We've also cleaned out 53,000 highway gullies, which is a 20% increase on the year before. And we've completed over 2,600 new drainage repairs and nearly 400 locally identified environmental maintenance tasks, which collectively have contributed to closing off and closing out around 46,000 customer inquiries about highway matters. So, a huge amount of progress. This slide, unfortunately, this slide deck is a little bit out of date. There was an update to this one. I did notice the original slide at the front had got the wrong date on it as well. So there is a more positive slide than this. The top indicator there should be green. The current performance around that is all green. There's very, very slight exception on the category 1 response was just about a couple of percentage points behind the target, and that is really just a reflection of what we expect at this time of year, really. The second indicator was also completely green. That has got, thanks, Darryl.
James, just want to highlight to members what the different categories are and what our expectations are of an emergency repair, a Cat 1 and a Cat 2.
I can do, yeah, of course. On the first KPI there, we're capturing data on 3 different types of high-risk defects. So emergency defect response are the ones that we expect to respond to immediately, essentially. As soon as we capture about that you were talking there about some sort of, a collapsed culvert on a busy A road that's got, sort of life-threatening situation to it. So we want to respond to that urgently. Yep. A category 1 is a very, very high risk defect, so that's got a 24-hour response time to it. So again, we try and capture that. So our performance is always really good on the emergencies and Cat 1s. Say for the December period, because during a couple of storm events where we'd got trees falling down, that type of thing, the amount of work level goes up so quickly that there was about a dozen instances where we didn't quite hit the 24-hour response time to remove and tidy up the defect. It was just marginal though on a few of those, so it was just a few hours after, which does happen from time to time. But then the category 2 is the next level of our high-risk defects, which has got a 7-day response. Further down, we then get into the lower risk, which is KPI number 3, which we're talking about as category 3 and are kind of lower, but still safety defects. Does that answer the question?
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, the second KPI in there, the pothole numbers repaired, is actually also green because the target on there is wrong at this time of year. That target, it should actually be, I think it's about 1,400 defects, so we have exceeded that during December. Again, the performance there was only a part month, so I really apologise for that slide. That's not the slide that was provided. It's the incorrect one. But that second indicator is currently green for our December performance. The third KPI is actually the only one that is amber and remains amber. The reason it remains amber is because when at the start of recovery plan, we set a target to reduce the backlog of lower risk defects. The rate of reduction in that backlog of lower risk defects hasn't been achieved at the rate we thought we had, whilst productivity is up, and we're exceeding on all our run rate targets for the amount of work. The reason that the defect hasn't come down as quickly as anticipated is because we hadn't quite anticipated the number of new defects that were going to continue to rise following last winter's very challenging weather conditions.
Basically, we've had considerably more reports.
Absolutely. So that was a challenge, and also because through the governance arrangements we've agreed with the political steerers being let's focus on the bigger, good quality, good durable responses rather than just chasing the numbers. Let's not let the target number drive the wrong behaviour. Make sure we do the right things in the right way. So whilst it's amber, we're quite pleased and satisfied that it's
absolutely
amber and it's telling us the right picture. And I think that particularly on that as well, it's worth keeping in mind that the performance is telling us that we're doing the right things in the right way, because in the approach we're taking, as Councillor DeVille has already mentioned again, when we compare where we are now, or quarter 3 of this year compared with quarter 3 the previous year, we have seen a 28% reduction in claims numbers coming through. We have seen a 29% reduction in customer defect reports, and we've seen a 25% improvement in customer satisfaction as well, which is not saying the job's done. There's huge amounts still to do, obviously. It's just that we're going in the right direction with the plan and the activity and the level of resource that we've got. So hopefully we are doing the right things in the right way with what's available to us. On the capital programme, again, really just very quick summaries on this, which again I think has already been mentioned, but we've got 37 targeted structural maintenance and resurfacing schemes at the start of the year. 26 of those are now complete, and we have 3 on site and 8 programmed to start during quarter 4. So on track with all of that lot. All the surface treatments programme, it's a seasonal operation which finishes in October, and by October we had successfully completed 100% of this year's programme, including 44 roads that were brought forward from, which were 44 roads that were done from last year that we couldn't do because of poor weather, so we've had to sort of catch up with those 44, but also a further 92 roads that were identified in next year's programme, the 2025 programme, which we had the ability to be able to accelerate and deliver early in the current year. So not just fixing more roads, but adding greater value with this year's money by doing next year's work at this year's prices, if that makes sense. So really good on that. And also on the members programme there, I should say the numbers have updated slightly. So we're now at 140 out of 196 live member divisional highway programme priorities completed in the year to date, and 97% of those within the agreed timescales. And we have 159 member escalated work tasks that have also been delivered with 99% on their completed timescales or agreed timescales. And also member prioritised pothole repairs. We've now completed 1,289. We have 273 identified and outstanding, and the only real reason why they are outstanding is we're just waiting for the network availability to get on to be able to do that, because there is just so much activity on the road network at the minute. Obviously not just our own maintenance, but the amount of utilities and other activity.
I think it's fair to say that the members' pothole schemes worked really well in my eyes, you know, because at the end of the day, you know your areas best. You work closely with your divisional highways team, and that helps to prioritise, you know, potholes that have been about for a considerable amount of time. So I think it's worked really well that members have had that opportunity to prioritise their own area. And that's helped delivery, hasn't it, James, Absolutely. As well?
Yeah. So I'll move on quickly to the communications. I'm cantering through because I'm sure there's plenty of questions. The communication strategy, again, as Councillor DeVille said, I'm just repeating what he said, has been it's really moved us forward in terms of our performance frontier as a service. We've got a dedicated comms resource now, which is paid for through the transformation programme, and you know, a very clear proactive strategy. And it's really helping to kind of maximise the visibility and the impact of the Council's Fixing More Roads priority. I've shamelessly stolen this slide from one of the Strategic Board Governance progress meetings, which includes what the comms lead, Gemma Stiles, refers to as a green donut there. The greener that donut, the happier that she is, quite rightly. And it's basically the December period was a record, I think, from our understanding of the data that we've got. In total, there were 122 different media mentions. Say it's an all-time record, with 81% of those being positive, 18% being neutral, and just 1% being negative. Of those, 16 were press releases from the comms team, made up of a mixture of progress on structural schemes, our response to storm events such as Storm Dara, the winter gritting operations, and also updates on the Branston Bridge situation. And as you might expect, the weather did dominate the media coverage through December. The spikes there on the little graph do illustrate when we'd got storm and snow and ice events. And we secured some really good coverage, including the local media and the Sentinel, referring to Staffordshire's highway gritting crews as heroes, which, you know, is really nice to hear, and a real big morale boost for the guys and girls who are out there in, you know, all days of the year and in all different sorts of weather conditions. In terms of other comms activities, the latest Highways Explainer video went live during December around the whats and wheres of gully emptying. The new Fixing More Roads emails continues to be sent out to local members, together with updated operational data and the social media templates that they can use locally. And we also had the latest round of the Highways newsletters, which were being issued, which now, based upon the data available, are being opened and read by around about 13,000 residents of Staffordshire every quarter.
And I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning, again, just to enhance James's message there, Chair and members, our teams do a tremendous job, day in, day out. They are out in the worst of weathers, you know, I mean, the Storm Dara, just before Christmas, how many trees did we have down reported that morning, James? An immediate response. They're out working when we're sleeping. The teams were out last night up in the Moorlands. Dave Rushton's reported to me this morning. So they do a tremendous job. Not only are they repairing roads in the summer, they're carrying out these works in the winter. And I'm sure you'll join me in thanking them for what they do.
And then the very final section of this these slides is around the underpinning transformation programme, which I'll just round up with now. You'll be pleased to know I'm not going to read through that slide. It's there just for you to be able to read at your own leisure, obviously. But really what I've put it on there is to say that you can see all those green ticks because consistently with the rest of the Fixing More Roads activity, the transformation activity also remains green with all the milestones and KPIs on track. This slide is just a selection of some of the key milestones that we've delivered that I've just cherry-picked out there as really just an illustration of the amount of activity and a useful reminder that all of this transformation activity is going on in the background whilst we're also delivering that massive response on the ground in terms of all that extra investment activity. Yeah, so I won't go through it, but again, there's some pretty significant pieces of work there in terms of duty transferring of roles and responsibilities, organisational redesign, workforce strategies, and new contracts, terms, and commercial arrangements being put in place in terms of moving to that new mixed economy operating model as well. So all of that lot going on seamlessly in the background. And I know it does sound a bit cheesy, but I'm going to have to say, so on behalf of my team as well, who were involved in this, I really couldn't be prouder of the fact that they are managing to keep all that going whilst sort of flying the plane on the ground, so to speak, and getting that activity progress so well. In terms of what's coming for the foreseeable future on the remaining elements of the transformation programme, again, there's just a summary. It's basically reminding ourselves that whilst, yes, this performance is, I would use the word exemplary in terms of the KPIs and the progress on the milestones is great. There's also no room for complacency. Councillor DeVille reminds us often that there's only a very small gap between a pat on the back and,
Kick up the backside.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're always reminded of that, and there's no room for complacency at all. Our key milestones over the coming months are summarised there. The big one, obviously, in March Cabinet decision, where we get the new investment strategy for next year. Yeah, I won't again read through those. That they're there for you to read at your leisure. I can ask questions about them if you like. I suppose one of the big things I should have said now, just to sort of as I hand over, is that one of the big milestones that has been achieved in the last few months, or last month actually, was the launch of the new reporting tool and the CRM capability. So when I just finished in 30 seconds from now, I'm going to hand over to Tim, who is going to present the committee with a live demonstration of that system. But my summary is really a huge amount of further positive progress since the last update in September. Delivery status is green across the board on all our activity. We recognise there's still there's still lots more to do. This isn't a task finished, it's just an ongoing piece of work. We're just progressing well with the plan and the resources we've got. And hopefully your committee will agree we're making a good, positive difference to the residents of Staffordshire.
Yeah, thank you, James. And I think James emphasised that progress has been made, but no complacency on our part whatsoever, and much, much more to do. Do you want to ask questions now, Chairman, or go into Tim's presentation?
Yeah, questions first.
Yep.
On what you've just done. David?
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, can I make it absolutely clear that I'm delighted locally with the service that we're getting. And so the comments that I want to make are things where things may potentially be going wrong. And it's not a criticism of the system as we see it at the moment, which I think is excellent. And I do sympathise that the pothole gnomes seem to be working at night and creating problems. Chairman, firstly, I'm concerned about having a rural division. The water which is flowing off agricultural land and is not being taken away because ditches are not being properly maintained, that we are looking at the damage which is being done to the edges of roads, which if we solve the ditch problem, could ease the pressure on pothole and road repairs. I would then mention South Staff's water seem to be a law to themselves. We had an appalling problem in my village where, for very reasonable planned reasons, we closed a road which had several thousand vehicles travelling a day, which put tremendous pressure on the roads which went through the main village. That was not very welcome by the village, but it's something that we had to do. But slap bang in the middle of that, South Staff's Water, without any application to the county at all, closed Main Street. So we had no access through the village at all. My question really relates to the coordination of work that we have with South Staff's Water, which quite clearly they have to maintain their network, but we were not notified until the Friday, and they closed Main Street for the best part of a month. I have another road in my division, which I don't suspect is greatly different to problems that people have in other areas, where a road was closed and we spent the best part of a month trying to decide whether it was a county council responsibility or whether it was a South Staff's responsibility. The first thing that South Staff seem to do, as far as any problem is concerned, is not me, mate. They then find out at a later stage, after significant delays, that it is their problem. I would like to look at the coordination of road closures so that we do clearly understand, Chairman, that one road closure can be managed. 2 road closures cause chaos, and we don't seem to have that level of coordination that we perhaps might have appreciated in the way that traffic flows have to be maintained. And then finally, could I just ask, the report that you've done today would be of significant interest to parish councils. Do you have any objections or any problems that we should circulate this to interested parties? Thank you, Chairman.
Not at all. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Smith. 2 very good points. Firstly, drainage. We are absolutely putting more emphasis on drainage because potholes generally come from water ingress. And with the changes in weather that we've seen in recent years, drainage, floods, flooded road, closed roads is much more of a problem than it was 5 years ago. So we are putting considerable extra attention and investment and resource into drainage. So more gullies to be emptied, but I think more importantly, it's not enough just to improve our rate of cleansing gullies. If there's an issue, if there's a drainage issue, invariably that either needs more investigation work or a dig down crew. And we are looking at putting more resource and will put more resource into dig down crews to find serious and probably long-standing drainage problems and more importantly repairing them. We also, Councillor Smith, and you're quite right, need to and are working closer with residents and landowners where it's their responsibility to maintain and clear gullies and soakaways. So that is an ongoing and will be an evolving project where we're looking much more closely at drains, gullies, dig downs and working closer with the local residents. We're putting resource into there because we see that as an increasing problem. I think my mailbox, and I guess yours as well, has sort of switched from the emphasis being totally on highway repairs, potholes, to drainage problems and floods. I get much more correspondence around floods now than I do highway repairs. And the second point, absolutely agree with you. You know, our work with utility companies has been problematic. Everyone, we all get the same issues, and it's not just South Staff's Water either. It's not just Severn Trent. It's all of them, Cadent, BT, fibre companies. We have problems and have had problems with all of them. We are putting additional resource into working closely with utility companies so that we can streamline their works, that we can check their works, that we ensure that if they say that a job requires a 2-day road closure, that it is maximum 2 days. and also through our additional inspectors, that when the work is completed, they damn well remove the traffic signals. There's nothing more frustrating to local residents than a job being completed and red lights remaining throughout a weekend. And we've all suffered that experience. We've all seen that experience. I have to say that through Mr. Ayres, we've established a good working group with Severn Trent. I'd say that Severn Trent 2 years ago were a massive problem to us, causing massive frustration to local residents in all areas of Staffordshire. I think we've established a really good working relationship with them now, and we meet with them on a regular basis. And I think, Darryl, that we are seeing the fruits of that relationship. You know, you only sort a problem out if you sit round the table, discuss the issue, and mutually agree to bring your emphasis to the table to resolve the situation. And I think it's true to say that the situation with Severn Trent is much better now. Take it very, very seriously, David, that we do need to work with utility companies, and we need to reduce the amount of time that utility companies are in with road closures or with traffic signals, that the job's finished and then the signals are taken away. So we are putting extra emphasis on working closely with utilities. Oh, and with regard to the presentation, of course, we'll circulate this.
Updated version.
An updated version with all the key performance measures in green. And you're very welcome to use it at parish councils, town councils, or whatever you need.
Thanks, Mark. Graham?
Thank you, Chair. Just 3 points, well, 4 actually. One, I'm already using it on, in talking to residents. I've already posted quite a lot of the facts and figures on this. Secondly, Severn Trent, I was asked to be involved in the initial about 2 years ago, wasn't it? Yeah, and they were quite shocked that at the senior level that their crews on the ground were taking some of the liberties there were, and I'm delighted it's it. You mentioned, Councillor, the number of kilometres of gritting that I've done right at the beginning, and I missed it, but I didn't want to interrupt. What was that again?
Over Christmas, we completed 25,000 miles of gritting route. That was in 10 days.
Can I say, for the record, please send our thanks to the gritting crews, because that is a phenomenal 25,000 miles in 10 weeks is phenomenal.
10 days.
Well done.
In 10 days. In 10 days.
In 10 days, sorry.
Yeah.
Can I also live in a rural area, and sometimes I'm quite shocked at the amount of water that runs off fields.
Yeah.
And if a tree falls on the road and it's clearly owned by the landowner, there's quite a big bill goes to that landowner if the tree is cleared via the county getting in. And getting tree surgeons in there to clear it. So I was wondering if we could have a dedicated crew that would clear gullies in fields, and if the farmer hasn't done it, we send our own crew in and just give them a bill for the work done, just like we do with trees. I just think it's something. I know there'll be legalities that you'll have to talk. It's just something I was thinking about driving when I was driving here this morning. Perhaps it's a new approach which will galvanise a lot of landowners to say, "Oh God, no! I'm not getting a £5,000 bill from the county. I'll get my own digger in." Just a thought. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Councillor Hutton, for your kind words about the gritting crew, and they will be passed on, rest assured. As for trees down, I remember at the time of Storm Dara, in my small village, I had 4 trees down, reported them all. They'd already been reported through the system that Tim's going to go through, the previous system. And the emergency team were out in the same day and cleared all of those. So again, a fantastic response to what was really an emergency situation. James, do you want to speak about maybe further relationship with landowners with regard to trees and hedge cutting?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sorry. So the certainly with planned issues, so if it's a ditch or a tree that's a danger, that's not fallen and become an emergency, if it's a danger and we're concerned about it, then those sort of services are currently available. So we would notify the landowner or either the drainage ditch or the dangerous tree, etc., so that they have to legally have the right and the ability to be able to deal with it. I think where we can be better, and I think picking up on your suggestion there, is that we need to pursue that quite aggressively to be able to say, if you don't do it by this date and time, then we will have to come in and deal with it. Now, we do that, but we're perhaps not quite as assertive as you're suggesting we could do. And then, yes, we've got the resource to potentially go and do that, and then, but it does create another process then, which we then got to try and financially recover those costs, which, you know, we do get tangled in that. So if we can avoid it, and we can persuade and support the landowner to be able to do those activities themselves, that's a better outcome. It's normally more cost effective for them because we don't involve legal procedures and officers going back and forth and so on, which adds a lot of cost to it. So it's much more efficient, but there is a mechanism for us to be able to pursue that and get that done if necessary. And as you say, it might be a bit of a sort of stick approach to try and nudge more proactive action directly from the landowner themselves.
And from my own experience, local officers that certainly work in my area and Councillor Atkins' area and yours, Graham, I know from my own experience that Paula Lees and Rob Steele and Dave Rushton do that on a regular basis, go and knock on doors, and because they've got a good relationship with the local community and local landowners and local farmers, they've got a good relationship, and they do go and speak to them in a very, very courteous manner and say, there's some work here that needs doing, can you get on with it? That does happen. Doesn't happen immediately, they don't carry out the work immediately, but I think with the right response and that local response and local knowledge, I think that already goes on, Graham. I think we do that now, and I've experienced that we do that now.
Thanks, Mark. Charlotte?
Thank you, Chair. Great to hear about the gritting, but I want to ask about pavements, because you will be aware, Mark, how lethal the pavements are around Leek. And indeed, we had an issue around the Wednesday market in Leek because it was too unsafe for the market to proceed. And we've had a lack of repairs to pavements. We don't have any gritting of pavements. And when we're having a population which is rapidly aging, having lethal pavements means that we're going to have falls, we're going to have more people going to A&E, we're going to have more demand on the ambulance service. So what is the plan to deal with that? Because, you know, gritting of roads is great. Now, as it happens, I don't quite know why this happens, but everyone in my road, Park Road, seems to walk down the road anyway. But obviously, with the absence of gritting of pavements, it means that people walk in the road because the road appears to be less slippy than the pavements. So what is the strategy to deal with this? Because when you have the sort of cold snap we had a week or so ago, a few weeks ago, then it means that some people are literally afraid to go out, even to get into their cars, let alone to cross that pavement. So what are we doing about that? I've never quite understood why we regard pedestrian customers as so less worthy of support than car drivers.
Well, we don't regard pedestrians less worthy of gritting than roads and road users. However, of course, the realities of life are that we just can't grit we can't grit all of our road network. I wish we could. If we had the money, we'd grit all of our A roads and B roads and major roads. We can't cover the whole of the highway network. So we certainly haven't got the resource to grit pavements. I think that, Councillor Atkins, is where the local communities come in. I think that's where strength of local communities come in. We do provide, and James will know exactly how many grit bins we've got, thousands. How many grit bins have we got in the county?
Over 3,000.
Over 3,000 grit bins, strategically located, and I'm constantly getting requests for more grit bins. And our local offices do a quick assessment of the need of the grit bin, and then it's installed. So grit bins, over 3,000 grit bins are dotted around the county in strategic points, and they're refilled by ourselves. We also, in the more remote areas, drop grit piles off, and that's where the local communities come in. Now, I have always, in my local area, taking your point, Charlotte, I know, obviously, fairly intense areas around the local care homes. So I do them myself with a couple of volunteers. Is that a strategy? Well, maybe not, but that's where local community comes in. So I tend to grit myself areas where grit bins are, because they're usually in fairly intense areas with slopes either up or down onto a main road, and around care homes. And I do get some volunteers that help me. We did have the Ice Buster scheme, didn't we, some years back, where we got volunteers, kitted them up with high vis and shovels and various equipment. So I think that whilst we can't and never will, the truth is we'd never be able to grit the whole of the network, never mind footpaths. I think that's where maybe we can work closer again with parish councils, and Mary Ann Rafter has done a lot of work with parish councils in the past with regard to voluntary schemes. This is something that we can pursue maybe with discussions with parish councils, but I think this is where local communities really come to the fore. The strength of local communities really come to the fore, and people do volunteer. I had a request only this morning from a councillor up in Horton, Councillor Cox, who you know, Charlotte. She's funded a grit bin out of her local Stafford Moorlands District Council Community Fund, and has requested us to refill, the County Council to refill with grit, which we are doing. So I think a lot of that is down to the strength of the local community. And they do come to the fore. Local people really do come to the fore.
Because there were two aspects to my question. One, of course, about repairs to pavements, but also, if you could clarify what the refilling of grit bins, how that occurs, because originally they were filled at the beginning of the season and then not refilled. So that's an issue. Now, obviously, if you're putting more grit bins onto the system, now I don't know how much that costs, but it used to cost a huge amount to add another grit bin to the system. So maybe you could tell me how much that costs and what's happening about the repairs to pavements, because that also, creates hazards, and particularly, obviously, if you've got potholes in pavements which then become iced over, that is a significant risk as well.
On the grit bin restocks, there are sort of two tiers of grit bins. We've got the more strategic grit bins and grit piles, and some sort of more remote grit bins that don't get used quite so much. So the strategic ones, the priority ones as we call them, do get refilled through the year. The lower ones don't. That was a policy decision taken a few years back by Cabinet to try to help sort of manage and rationalise the amount of grit that gets used, so that we don't, the communities, whilst they are doing that sort of citizen pride and doing their sort of engaging and helping in the community, they don't do it too freely and waste the grit, because again, it is sodium chloride at the end of the day. It does get into the water courses and so on, so it has got environmental impact. So we're trying to rationalise the use. And if the forecast is good and the sun's coming up and hopefully things are going to thaw out, well, if we can be patient and just wait for the ice to naturally, or the frost to naturally thaw, then that's a better solution for the environment point of view. So they will get refilled on the strategic ones as and when they're needed, and we tend to kind of plan that in with the winter crews So obviously once they're busy doing 25,000 miles of preventative treatments over 10 days in the winter, that's not the best time to be filling grit bins. But as soon as that activity calms down again and we get on top of that and the weather forecast allows, then those resources are deployed back onto refilling grit bins. Coming on to footway repairs in generally, there has been a moratorium on footway repairs for the last 2 years. Not safety repairs, obviously localised safety repairs have carried on, but in terms of the major preventative maintenance programmes and the structural renewal programmes, that moratorium was in place purely because the huge amount of fibre investment that was going on across Staffordshire, so to avoid that risk of premature failure or premature damage to those new assets. So well, the Cabinet did decide to take a 2-year break from that. But Councillor DeVille has recently made a delegated decision to commence that programme just in February. So of this financial year, and next year's capital programme will involve again investment in footway maintenance, both on the preventative programme and the structural renewals programme.
Could you give me a bit of clarification on something? There were a lot of complaints about, the gritting in the centre of leak. Now, is it the case that you can grit, but actually, because of the coldness of the weather, that effectively does not have the impact that you would want it to have? Because I think it was gritted first thing in the morning, but then was then reported as being very icy, particularly around the monument, where that particular road surface is pretty lethal at the best of times.
Yeah, I remember you making the inquiry, and I remember investigating it myself and responding back to you that the Derby Road, I'm saying the right place, the route on there that goes where the leak market is, was treated the evening before. It was treated again first thing in the morning, around about 4 a.m, I think, 4:15 in the morning. And it was due to be treated again at 7 o'clock. That route was treated again at 7 o'clock in the morning, but by that time the market had already been erected, so they couldn't actually do that piece and had to go around it. And I think that's where, whether it was something to do with the changing pattern for the changing weather at that sort of early time in the morning, whether something changed there, I don't know. But that was the only reason that localised little piece didn't get treated for 3 times within 12 hours.
Thank you, Charlotte. Connor?
Thanks very much, Chair. I think it's fair to say there's been a reasonable improvement, I think, in highways. There are many issues, but in terms of visibly looking at the number of projects that are coming on stream and the quality of those works, structural maintenance scheme at Swan Junction in my division is a good quality scheme, and it looks to be a good investment. So I think there are some real positives to draw out of that. There are also some things which I think still require a bit of improvement. David has already mentioned one of them, which is network management. We've got a great, probably quite small team working quite hard and frantically trying to coordinate works, but on 2 fronts. One, our own works. If you look on one network, I'm almost being the network manager myself, which, to be honest with you, I shouldn't need to be. There should be a team there doing that for residents and for councillors. So I feel like I'm intervening far too many times than I need to. And often decisions have just been made to close a main A road for 10 days, one of the busiest routes into Burton, and it's just like, we're doing that for patching works. We don't need to do that. We could work and think about how we schedule those works in properly, limiting the disruption to local residents, and I think sometimes we don't always achieve that. And the second point is utilities, which South Staff's water are also the main concern. Unfortunately for them, we had really cold weather, so that means that, of course, they have more water leaks. But there's a difference between their approach. If it's a leak that's reported direct to them, they'll probably come in an emergency and take 5 days to fix the leak and repair the road surface. And that's because they haven't got all of their crews, the traffic management and so on, all planned in. If we proactively go to South Staffs Water and say, by the way, you've got a minor leak on this road here, but we want you to plan it in, they can plan that in and say the next week and do all of the repair in 24 hours. So it's a question really for us and South Staffs Water to say, how can we work together to ensure that more of the minor leaks are planned in properly so that they don't affect all of the other works within the area that are planned in too. And I think we probably need to look at that maybe outside of this meeting and more as a working group or something like that to really address the traffic management issues across each of our towns. Because whilst we see very positive information or feedback on certain structural maintenance schemes and so on, I would say that green donut is exactly the opposite way for network management and roadworks. So I think we owe it to all of our residents to try and improve that going forward. That was more of a comment rather than a question to you. I've been really critical about structural maintenance schemes in the past. I won't name them all, but there's a few that have failed over the last 24 months. Are we concerned that there are any other structural maintenance schemes that have been completed recently that have quality issues that we need to address?
Thank you, Councillor Wildman. I'll bring James in on the structural maintenance schemes in a moment. I agree totally with the works with utility companies. I think we've covered that extensively earlier. I'm with you all the way on that. I experienced just before, like the week before Christmas, a total road closure. That was Cadent, actually, in Grindley Lane in Mere Heath. The week before Christmas, you know, generally business's busiest week of the year. Massive frustration. So I agree totally that we do need, and as I said earlier, we are working closely with utility companies now. I think with regard to the network and our whole approach to works with utility companies on the Staffordshire network, I think you made an excellent suggestion which we'll proactively take forward with regard to perhaps a working group made up of members of this committee maybe, just looking at the way that utilities work with us, that they work with local residents, and see how we can streamline the operation and the way that utilities operate with us. Because first port of call, whenever a hole's dug, is at Staffordshire County Council. Get on to your Staffordshire County Councillor. May well be that it isn't at Staffordshire County Council works. It may well be BT or Severn Trent or South Staffs Water, but we are the port of call. So I think that's a really good suggestion, Darryl, to work with local members on a bit of a focus group, because it is really important. And you're right, Connor, we are making real improvements in key critical areas to our customers. But that is a key critical area to our customers where we need to improve further. Not kicking and falling out with our utility companies, with working closely with them to help streamline their works, streamline the way that they apply to Staffordshire County Council for road closures and use of our highways, and streamline it to the benefit of our residents. So I think that's a really good point we can take that from this meeting, that we'll look at setting that group up, Darryl and James. And thank you for your comments on the network management team. They're a small team. They're excellent. They work so hard. My particular officer in the north of the county is Kelly White. Immediate response. Any issue with regard to the network, and Kelly and the other officers I know are immediately straight onto it, and we get a tremendous response. So again, I'll pass on that kind and very positive comment to the network team. James, you want to take up structural schemes?
On the structural schemes then, I think there's probably two. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Councillor, but I think there's two particular things that come immediately to my mind. I know locally to you there was the particular issue with Shopnell Road. That was an innovative in situ recycling product or attempt that, yes, it did suffer early failure, which obviously is most disappointing. Obviously, innovative approaches like that do come with greater risk around that, but that's not to say it's not disappointing. And yeah, we've had to go in and do remedial, or sorry, the contractors had to go in and do remedial works around that, which yeah, is one example. But I think more generally, you're likely to be referring to as well the use of the SMA type materials, the thin surface courses that have been quite prevalent around the UK for last decade or so. And yes, they do have a kind of, it's in many ways a good product, but perhaps more susceptible to weather conditions and did require more frequent preventative maintenance treatment thereafter. And when that hasn't always been affordable, then they have also suffered some increased frequency of failures. But the current investment programme the County Council is doing, we have moved away from those materials, and we are now going in many ways to more traditional hot rolled asphalt materials. But although I say it's more traditional, it's not looking backwards to old materials. They are more modern, they're more sophisticated, there's got different binders, developments and advancements in there now, but they are certainly more durable and yes, good quality materials. And examples like Jail Square just in Stafford is a good example, and it looks like a really high quality, good long-lasting product, which we'd expect to get a very good long life out of.
Yeah.
Any further questions or comments? Pippa, sorry, I did have you.
Thank you. Just quickly, with regards to the resources, with regards to dig down teams, I know we've had an additional team. I just wondered how that was going forward, if that was going to be maintained. And I know we've just touched on traffic and network management. We deal with Emma. I think she's fantastic, so if we could pass that on. But our issue tends to be locally that the utility provider pops up without appearing on the one network or with the utilities, and then their equipment isn't to standard, so their lights are stuck on red, and that's, again, a massive issue for us because no one could go anywhere. So I just think perhaps if we can have a working group or something that can work better towards that, that would be really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. Morning. Yeah, thanks again for your kind comment. That will be passed on. Yes, a working group is a great idea. I think we'll set that up, Chair, in discussions with yourself and the Vice Chair. And yes, the dig down team will be continued. We see great benefit from that, and it's an area of work that we feel needs strengthening resource-wise. So, yeah, we will be continuing with that work, and I'm glad that it's proving positive in your area as it is in all of our areas. They do great work. Thanks, Pippa.
Connor, did you want to come back in?
If other members of the committee haven't got any questions, then I've got a few more. In the presentation, in the key elements part, I don't know which page it is now, and the highway recovery plan, it mentions £0.8 million revenue to increase cyclical drainage maintenance. This has been a bugbear of mine in that it was quite evident from looking on the confirmed dashboard that we were quite far away from hitting targets around our annual cleansing routine. Do we have an update in terms of what the annual cleanse looks like now? Is it 18 months? Is it 2 years? And has this £0.8 million investment reduced the amount of time it takes? Thank you.
I can answer. I can answer that to an extent. The key answer is yes. That backlog, if you like, and catching up with the cyclical programme is significantly reduced now, so we're much closer now to getting back on track with it. I can't remember the precise numbers. I think we're somewhere like about between 30 and 50% of reduced that backlog, if the backlog is the right word. It might be even a bit better than that, but I can come back to you with the precise numbers if that would be helpful. And then moving into next year, we'd expect to eliminate that and get right back onto the full programme.
Yeah, it'd be just interesting to know, especially when, if you look at the confirmed dashboard, you think, great, there's a date there, and we used to be able to tell residents, well, the gully empty will be roughly around at this time. If you wait a couple of months, it'll be there. We don't need to do any ad hoc. Whereas at the moment, I'm not particularly confident in doing that at this point. So it'd be great if we could get back to that. And even if we could say to residents, well, look, we're struggling to meet the annual cleanse, but we, every 14 months we're coming round, so we could work it out that way. That would be really helpful on that one. DHP schemes, in the presentation it says that 97% of those are being completed within timescale. And I think if I look around members in this room, I would suggest
Mine have been.
yours have been. Mine definitely haven't been completed in time. I suppose the question is, what are those timescales? Because I'm actually not aware of what those timescales are. I suppose I put it onto my DHP, and then it's on a programme, and then I have to regularly ask for updates in terms of how and what progress is being made, and then eventually something gets done maybe in about 2 years' time. So I suppose the question is, if we've said 97% within timescale, we must have some sort of metric by which we're measuring that on. If we could have information on that, that would be helpful.
Yes, certainly. So every agreed DHP project, whether it's a feasibility study or a piece of work, at the time of agreeing that and the funding being allocated through the members' allocation, a timescale is now, from this year as part of the transformation programme, a timescale, a timestamp is given to that project, and that's what we're talking about. So if it's a simple, I don't know, a bit of signing or barrier work, something like that, it may be something like a 3-month time window, because there's no traffic regulation orders or public consultation and so on involved. So that would be an agreed timescale for that, and that's what we'd measure against. If it was something more complicated, like sort of parking restrictions or a speed limit that requires traffic regulation order, or something even bigger than that that may require, so we've had examples of bits of additional footway that have required land purchases and that type of thing, then obviously they can have a much different timescale, possibly 12 months, 2 years, that type of thing. But where the timescale is agreed, that's what we're measuring against, so they're all different. But there is a very comprehensive database which captures every individual scheme or agreed project that's got a time date to it and a time stamp, and then that's progress, and that should be communicated back to you when you have your twice annual DHP meeting, and you can monitor and track that, and you have all that data available to you.
Could I make a recommendation then? I mean, I don't have that information at this point.
It is quite new. It's
okay.
the bit that's only just kind of been launched, but that should be as your next round of DHP conversations.
Fabulous. And then 2 final questions on the table with the RAG status. There are 2 items. One is average inspection response, which has vastly improved, I think, over time. The only question I have about that is in response times for emergency Cat 1 and Cat 2s, presumably the inspection response time is always shorter than a response to a Cat 3. So that data doesn't necessarily show me anything, really. I think what we really need to see is average inspection response time for a potential or suspected Cat 3, so that we can see per category how that inspection is working out. Again, if we could have some of that data, if it exists. If it doesn't exist, then maybe that would be an improvement to the data that we see, so that we can see that properly. And the other one is quality, which is something that residents will always go on about, and rightly so. What metric is that based on? Because it says 98% quality, so that's extremely good. My suspicion is it's not quite that, if I look at the patching that goes on in my patch. So what is the quality metric based on? Thank you.
Yeah, the point about the average response time is yeah, we've discussed that ourselves, and to have share the same view. I think you're right, the higher risk ones are triaged on a desktop basis, and they're basically dealt with and responded to. Quite often the inspection is the repair crew when they're there and then, so there's no gap. So what you're talking about really, or what we're collectively talking about, is the lower risk defects that get reported. We know from the details that these aren't emergency or Cat 1 type things. So the measure was, because as part of that recovery plan, this time last year we were up to about something like 40-45 days from memory. It might have even been more than that, just because we were so overwhelmed by the number of new defects that were arising as a consequence of the terrible wet weather and the number of new defects, and the team's just been overwrought. So that's the intention, to try and bring that down. And yeah, we are where, I can't remember the number now off the top of my head, but I think we're still under 10 days for even on a low category defect. But that is what we're talking about. In terms of the quality, that's a combination of site inspections and desktop audit data. and it's where there's a non-conformity basically to the specification, and that is what it is. So that there are a number of different treatment solutions. So if we're talking about a pothole repair, sometimes if it is genuinely quite correctly a temporary repair, then it might not look brilliant to the layperson, but it is the right thing and it's to specification, so it would still be, it would still comply with the quality because it is conforming to what was required. And that might be where we get this little bit of a difference between what the public perception can be and actually what the actual performance data tells us. But we are generally shifting away from that, and we do very few temporary repairs now, so they are much more substantive, larger, and actually hopefully the perception and our actual data is getting much closer to being the same.
And I think I'm pleased to hear you say that you've seen an improvement in the response from our inspection teams. There has been a big improvement in the response of inspection teams. It's exactly right that James said with you generally get emergency repairs usually happen at midnight or 10 o'clock on a Friday night, don't they? Somebody rings in with an awful, dreadful, dangerous pothole. I've found in my experience that when we report emergencies, the crews, in my case, from Leek, contact me for pinpoint details, they're out and they repair it. So as James said, with emergencies, the inspectors are the repair team. They inspect it and repair it immediately, and a really good response. With regard to quality, again, when I moved back into the portfolio, spoke to senior officers, and the concern of mine was quality of workmanship. Quality of workmanship and getting it right first time. Now, this is not scientific at all, no scientific measurement around this, but when I look at the work quality around the county, is it improved over the last 12 months? Yes, it has. So again, and I'm sorry for repeating myself, but have we seen improvements? Definitely. Improvements with the quality of repairs, improvements with the frequency of getting them right first time. Have we seen improvements? Yes, we have. Is there more to do? Absolutely, there's much more to do, yeah.
Any further comments or questions from members? Okay, I think, Mark, we've waited a long time for such a positive report to come to us, and this is a positive report. It's plenty of good news, green areas, only a couple of amber, and that's down to the dedication of the teams out on the ground, and obviously you guys are formulating all that and working better. Connor is right, sometimes the quality of repair, you think, really, is that the best you can do? And I'm not a structural engineer, but I know when a good job doesn't look right. So we do need to be looking at that a little bit closer. I think I don't understand how you work the metric out. That's way above my head. But yeah, sometimes you look at it and think, is that the best you can do? And it doesn't look the best it could. But other than that, I think, with the report that we've got, it is positive, and there has been major improvement across the last 12 months. So congratulations go out to all the teams there. Regarding the utilities, it's been raised many a time. South Staff's Water have done a repair on a main road outside a fire station in Tamworth, but then a week later the whole road has sunk, and now we've got two massive potholes that have been there for now a week and nobody's been out. So I need to speak to you about that, because that's not good enough on a main trunk road outside a fire station. We've been asked to James, I don't like note on any reports, so can we look at a different word? When we say note, you're suggesting that we've all read it, and so you can guarantee that some people haven't. So if we can move away from noting progress and noting reports, that would be good for me. But we are where we are today. We're going to hand over to Tim now to go through the customer service new way of reporting it, and then we'll finish off this when Tim's finished.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your positive comments, and thank you for the work that you do as a committee, because I've come to Scrutiny for many, many years now. I find it a real positive. It helps me. I think challenge is good. I think scrutiny is good. Sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. So, you know, there's never been a scrutiny meeting that I've gone to that I haven't come away with something really positive and something to work on. And I think today all points are very relevant. But I think that working group, it won't be a working group, it'll be a task and finish group. It won't be a talking shop. It will be a results-led working team that will speak about Tina, will speak about the makeup of that, and I'm really enthusiastic about that. It is an area for further improvement. It is a massive area of concern to our residents when roads close and when we get utilities there. So that is an area that we want to pinpoint further action, and I'm very happy to provide officer resource to that team. Thank you. Do you all know Tim Hemmingsley, of course, don't you? So fire in then.
Yes, we do, Mark. So let's hand over to Tim. He's
Fire in with your
sitting there very quietly to come in.
He's been very, very patient.
Yeah, thank you. So what you can see on your screen is the new reporting system, and that's the home page. This went live on the 14th of January, so it's been up and running now for a couple of weeks. It was a result of 9 months of intensive work with 2 software developers, and this is the starting point for further improvement and development. And phase 1 of the delivery is really critical to get that base product up and running, get the foundation set that we can launch off and continue to improve as we go forward. So as you note on that screen, one of the first improvements that's immediately apparent is you can now create an account. So you can register for an account, or if you've already got one, you can sign in. You've got the menu on the side there, which just gives you access to a list of options to report. But if you scroll down, one of the key things we tried to achieve with this was to make it much simpler for the customer. So we are looking to make that customer journey smoother, quicker, easier to navigate. And if you note what the change from the previous version, it's a lot less cluttered. There's a lot fewer choices. And again, what we're trying to do is take the onus off the customer of telling us all the detail to the nth degree, making them choose between various types of pothole or road defects. And more of that onus is going back onto ourselves and our inspection teams to do that bit of work. You'll also note there as well where you've got that beta service. So this is launched, it's live, but it is still a test system. It works well, but there have been some bugs, and we continue to work on that. But we'd welcome your feedback. So for any customers using it or for members, you can obviously contact me directly, and I'll pick up those inquiries from you. If you've got any suggestions or things that don't work the way you want them to, then we'll certainly look into it. But there's also a feedback form, and we're collating all the data off that. So everybody can click into that link and give us some feedback around the design, how it functions, how it looks, suggested improvements, etc. And then you get down to this very simple few choices here, so it's pretty self-explanatory, and I will go and show you how to report a pothole in a second. If you keep scrolling down, we've still got a feature here where you can check a report. So if you've still got a reference number, that 4 million number, you can put it into there and it'll give you a status update. I know, Chair, when we had a discussion the other week, again, this is why it's really helpful to have these conversations. You pointed out a feature that you'd like to see on a future version, so where it would show you that report on a map and where it's located. So that's something we'll take away, and we'll look at how we can develop that. And then just at the bottom of that home page, you've then got access to information about roadworks, potholes, licenses. I know customers quite often don't go into those pages, but it is there. If somebody wants to drill down into the detail of why we do what we do and how we do it, it's all there for them to go onto. You can access this via the County Council's web pages. You can access it via a Google search. It'll bring it up. The pages have been indexed now, so it will come up to the top of the search. And also, you can still get through the My Staffs app, so you can access it on your phone and report through the new system on there. So if we go into looking at the potholes then, so I'll pick that damaged roads or pavements. And with every one of these reports, the first thing you'll get in a moment, you'll see it'll come onto a map. But I just want to draw your attention to, on this one, there's now 2 options. So there's report a pothole towards the bottom of the screen there, or below that there's report the condition of a road. And this is new to this system. So in the past we've made people plot each and every single pothole. And we're trying something different. And I just want to give you some of that distinction between when to use the report a pothole or to report the condition of a road. If you have a road defect that you're really concerned about and you feel that's a safety issue and need that one to be looked at, still report that a pothole is the best route to go. If it's a more general, the road has many problems and issues, the general condition of the road I'm dissatisfied with, then you go to the report the condition of a road route. So there's 2 different approaches now. Again, we'll take feedback on that, see how that works, see how people interact with that. But we're trying to make a step change from how it was operating before. I'm not saying it's the finished product, but we're taking that first step, and it'd be really good to know how you find that and what your experiences are of that. So I'll go the normal route, report a pothole, and then you immediately come to a map. And there's one on a road that I travel on regularly that I don't like, and I don't think it's been reported yet. So you can type in the search there where you want to go to. And if I just zoom out a bit, I know where it is because I went past it this morning. So it's down here on this bend. Again, all this works on a smartphone, the same. So you can see there's plenty of defects yet. And you'll notice there's different types of symbols on there as well. And if you just scroll down a bit, you get a key there, so you can see what those symbols refer to. When you click on them, so that one there with the car, so that's a job. And this is again different from the previous version. So we didn't show jobs in the past, we just showed the customer inquiries, so what somebody else had already reported. But now you see what jobs have also gone on. And again, by trying to give the customers more data, then we're hoping that in some cases they'll say, well, I don't need to report it now. I know it's there. I know that the council are aware of it and there's a job on. So it just gives you a little bit of data there, the location, etc. We've put priority on here as well. So we haven't used the more technical terms around emergency, Cat 1, 2 or 3. But we've just used a priority level, and this one will be a low priority, so probably in the other parlance it'll be a Cat 3, won't it? And then it tells you what type of repair. And then it's got a completion date as well. This could be interesting because, as you can see there, that one was from August 2024. And this again might be interesting to get the feedback of the committee and members at large on whether that kind of information wants to be displayed or not. So that's something to consider. But yeah, so if I start clicking now, I'll click on that one. What's that one there? So that's an inquiry, so different to the job type. Somebody else has reported it there. And if I want to follow that, so I don't have to then create a new pothole inquiry if I don't want to, I can just click, report and follow, and add myself to that inquiry. So that's similar to what we had before. But I want to report a new pothole, so I'm going to. So I click on the location, it's about there. And then the next question that comes up is whether you've incurred loss or you witnessed damage. So if there's a claims element linked, if there's a claims element linked to this, then this journey will take you through to that as well. But we're saying no in this instance. So where is the issue? And again, we give the customer a much smaller list of choices. So again, it's quicker, it's faster to go through. It's on the road in this case. How wide is it? So this has been a source of some amusement and controversy, but we've moved away from technical terms and we've tried to use more colloquial terms. There's some argument about what terms we should use. Have been asked what size is a dinner table, is it a 4-seater, an 8-seater, etc. But I think you get the general point that we're just saying to the customer to give us some information of how big this is and what kind of urgency to give it. So in terms of width, it's the one I've seen is about between a dinner plate and a dinner table. How deep is it? It's more than a can of Coke, or pop, as we say here. And then very quickly, you're into some free text about location details. You do have to put something in here, so I'll put on the bend. And date first noticed, well, I'm going with today's date. You can then add photos, again, very similar to the previous version. You can drag and drop photos into there if you're on a computer. If you're on your phone, it'll take you to the relevant folders to put your photos in. Issue details, pothole. And then contact details. Now, if you don't have an account already, you can now choose to register for one, but I do have an account. So I will go on to that. Oh, sorry, clicked on the wrong one. Oh, that's interesting. I tripped myself up here. I probably should have signed in first. This will be interesting. We'll see where this takes me then. So this will be interesting now to see if it recognises that I have an account. I haven't tried this. So this is all live. Yeah, I'm going off piste. Yeah. That's my personal one, so please don't copy that. Postcode.
We now know where he lives.
This is a huge mistake. So yes, I live in Rugeley. There you go.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, nice and easy to remember. And then it takes you onto a page about asking you if it's an emergency report. So again, it gives the customer some information there, stating what we think of as emergency. We've been monitoring this. Generally, it's not been abused. People are generally sensible. The inspectors will look at it anyway and determine whether it is actually emergency, but of course, what people respond to here does affect where that sits in that list for the inspectors to consider. So it's not an emergency. And then you get a summary of your details there and the report you've made. Submit the form. And there we go. And then it gives you a chance to leave your feedback there as well, if you want to. And now if I go and sign into my account, so it's interesting, I've noted that it didn't say anything that it recognised that I had an account already. So there's my account, and then you can see that case has popped up in my account now. And I will see progress updates in my account on that case. There's still the usual emails that go out as well, so if you don't have to sign up to an account, you can just stay as a guest and not put your details in to that degree. I think you always have to provide an email address as a minimum, so you get those updates. But yeah, I can then click on that case. I think this is a really helpful feature because when you've reported a lot of things, you've got that list then, haven't you, of everything that's gone in. It's easier for you to keep track. I know some councils have created spreadsheets and the like to follow everything. And I suggest in those parished areas, or if you've got town councils, they can create their own area, can't they, their own account and follow what they've reported, which I think is really helpful. So there's different options there. But if I go back to the cases, you can see my cases. If I go back to my account, online forms. So I think in future when people apply for vehicle access crossings, those kind of things, those will all show up on there as well. And you'll see the progress on there. Obviously, I can't show you that bit now because I've only just submitted it. That just gives you a quick overview and flavour. I'll just briefly come back out a second. And then, as you can see, those are some of the other choices. The journey is effectively the same each time. Ask you a simple question at the start, and then you go into a mapping element, and then a few simple questions after that. So that's a whistle-stop tour. If you've got any questions, then feel free to ask me. Yeah.
David.
Thank you, Chairman. Tim, I think it looks a super system and a great improvement on before, and particularly that we're now able to report complete roads as opposed to individual potholes. The two questions that I would ask, I was going to say, would it be possible to have this presentation sent to us so that we could forward it to our parish councils? But I'm not sure that that's going to be the best way of dealing with it, because I think the presentation that you've given is needed to go with the presentation. So I'm wondering whether you would be prepared to come out and talk to, in my area I have 5 parish councils, and you know from when you were with us as you're working in our area, that we can get a good response of parish councillors coming to a meeting from the 5 parish councils, if you'd be able to come and explain the system to us.
I think, so thank you, Councillor Smith, for that question. I think, given the number of parish councils across Staffordshire, this could become quite onerous for me, and I could set myself maybe a target that will be difficult to achieve. So I think what may be useful is if we provide a video or something that can be shared with parishes so they can see a practical demonstration rather than me repeating it multiple times in person. I think that's probably the better approach. There is a video that gives a very light touch overview, but I know that I've also narrated a journey as well for reporting a pothole. So we should be able to share something around that with yourself that you can share with the parishes.
Yeah, I understand that, Chairman, and I think that may be a good way of approaching it. But if you felt that there would be a benefit in me talking to my colleagues in adjoining divisions, I'd be quite happy to do that, to do an enlarged meeting to minimise the sort of problem you have. So if that's something you want to take up, perhaps we might talk about it outside this meeting.
We can talk about that offline. And there are some champions for this as well. So we've got a group of people that understand the system and how to use it. So we might be able to make use of that group as well. Okay.
Pippa.
Thank you. I think I use this every day. And the feedback that I provide goes through our community highways officer.
Right.
We'd noted the comments with regards to sort of the size of pop to a table. That was something that we'd raised as well. Some people only have a 2-seating dinner table, just for an example. My difficulty as a user is predominantly down to the map and plotting on a map. So using the phone versus your laptop is quite difficult to use. And it'll say it's not our asset. Yeah. And I 100% know it's our asset. Yeah. And it gets a bit frustrating, and I think potentially that would be an issue back with just anybody that wants to report a pothole. That would be really frustrating and stop them from doing it. And again, road signals, that was very difficult to do. And in the end, I had to make a phone call to say we've got road signals out. And the lady in customer service struggled to use the network to report it as well. And I had to say, I phoned you to help me, please. So I just think it's worth noting that it is still a little bit clunky on the map function side of it, but I appreciate that it's new and that we're getting there. But we perhaps could do with more comms. So if you've got a video that we can send out or put out on social media, I know Gemma's fantastic at doing that sort of thing as well. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. It's all really helpful, and the more feedback that we can have and identify where some of the weaknesses are, we can make improvements to change that. And that's the beauty really of the new system, is we have that ability, in many cases, not in all, because some changes might be more fundamental, but we do have the ability to make changes relatively quick. and have that continuous improvement. So yeah, that's very helpful. I am still waiting for a day when somebody sends me a photo of a can of pop in a pothole or a plate in a pothole or something. So, or the table, yes. But yes, I do note what you said there. I'll take that away. I am aware that we have received reports around the mapping element, and I think you're right. On a mobile device, it's trickier than what I've just demonstrated on a computer. So thank you. Yeah.
Can I just ask one more thing? With regards to the new system where you can check your old reports, is there any way of linking the old reports to your new account?
So as I understand, and I will have to check this and I'll come back to you, everything that went in previously should be on the new system. How that then links into your account, so I presume you set up an account. Yeah, so there's probably, I'll come back to this as well because I want to talk about member dashboards in a moment, which is another feature. I'll ask the team on how that, if that, and how that could happen. If it's okay, Chair, if I could just go to the member dashboard elements. So one of the other improvements for members is a dashboard of your division, and it will show you all of the potholes, etc., and other things in your division. All the reports are being put through and allow you to look at them and drill down into them. That exists, but we're rolling that out to members. There's some. It's not so much a system issue, it's more of a data issue. So at the moment, sometimes when we're looking at the members' dashboard, where people haven't correctly plotted something and it might end up displaying in the English Channel or something like that, where they haven't put the right information in and it's gone awry, we need to tidy up some of that data. So we're going through each member's division, tidying up the data. And as we do that, we're then releasing it to those members. And we're starting with yourself first, Councillor DeVille, and your two support members as well, and then we will continue to roll it out. And we've tried to target the members that are more proactive in the use of it, because I know they'll get the benefit quicker, and we'll work our way through all 62 members. So I can update Councillor DeVille on that, on where we are in terms of doing that and the timescales. But it'll be within the next 6 to 8 weeks. All members will see a dashboard. What I will say with that, though, you need to sign in with your member email, so your county council email, to get that to trigger and get the dashboard. So if you're using your personal email, you won't see the dashboard from that. It's to do with the GDPR and how the system's set up. I think other than that, as I said before, feedback's welcome. There will be further phases of development. So, you know, if you can see this as the starting point and the base to build off and the foundation, hopefully you can see some of the intention of what we're trying to achieve, where we're trying to go with it. And we're committed to keep building on it and hopefully improving it for everyone.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Connor?
Philippa makes a great point about if we can have the historical data on the system, that would stop me having spreadsheets and tables and stuff that I send to community, I always do. On damaged roads or pavements, it says pavements, but when you go into damaged roads or pavements, it says report a pothole or report the condition of a road. And I found that confusing because I was trying to report a damaged curb and it's kind of neither. So I was just thinking, well, it's not a pothole, so I can't report it to that. And I did just report it as report the condition of a road, but I just wonder, now you've explained exactly how that functionality works, that probably wasn't the right thing to do, because ultimately the second option, condition, should be reporting multiple defects. I assume that's the idea of it. And then if I look across other options, I can't see anything that would relate to pavements necessarily or curbs. So I wonder whether we can think about how we put that in.
Yeah, I'll certainly pick that element up. In terms of the multiple defects, we had quite lengthy discussions around that, and there were other solutions proposed. I won't go into all the detail of that now because it does get quite complicated. So we went for that report, the condition of a road, and you just simply select a point on the road in the free text, giving some extents of the conditions that you're concerned about, the length of that. We did look at having something where you could pick multiple points along a network in that one journey and giving a little bit of information on each one. But there's some significant cost implications of delivering something like that at this point. So again, all I'd say on that one, I think, is at this moment, we'd appreciate your feedback on the report, the condition of a road, how useful that is, how that's working, the feedback that you get from that, and whether we then develop that further in future. We can look at that.
So the reality is, if I want to report multiple defects in the issues free text section, you would essentially list the issues within
you can do that, yes.
Section of road. That would be the way to do it.
You
and
could
would
do
each
that.
of those then get... So the worry is that you can't really follow that through. You've just got one report then, and then presumably some of those defects will be dealt with at X time scale, but some of the defects will be dealt with at another time scale. So I just find that that might be very difficult to follow as a member and a resident.
Yeah, it is.
So I suppose, well, there's nothing more I can do other than say, I'd like you to spend more money on the upgrade soon, but at least it's an improvement from what was in place.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. And if you could take up the curb and pavement point, because I think members will and residents will want to report that sort of thing, and it is genuinely an issue that we need to resolve.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Christine.
Any further comments or questions on the new system? No. Okay. So we've done all of the reports on highways transformation this morning. So we've got 2 recommendations. Note progress on the highway recovery plan and capital maintenance programme, and number 2, to note the progress and next steps of the wider highways transformation programme. I think we have done that to death this morning, and I thank the officers and Mark DeVille for coming into us this morning. So if we're all happy, can we move those 2 recommendations?
Could I ask if this, bearing in mind your comments earlier on about noting as opposed to anything else, whether you wish to change the recommendation that we vote on?
Does anybody have a better wording other than note?
Could we add the network management task and finish group to the recommendation?
Yes.
Please.
I think you've picked that up, haven't you, Mark, to the task and finish group. So we'll add that to the recommendation. For now, we'll keep it at note, and James will come up with a different word when he does the next report. Monitor, or... if we're all happy, can we have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David. Thank you, Peter. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. If you wish to leave, you can. The next... Oh, work programme's next, sorry. Jacob?
Just before I present on the work programme, just a couple of things. One, I will add the task and finish group to the working programme for the committee to address Councillor Atkins' query at the start. I've just had a look at the minutes, and I presume you're referring to in item 38.b, where it says the Staffordshire bus strategy 6-month update is moved from the 7th of January to the 30th of January. That is a mistake. Apologies. However, I've had a look at the work programme report for the 7th of January and the 30th of January, as well as the working version of the work programme, and they are all up to date. So, does that...
So why has it been moved? Why has it been moved?
So, a number of items have been deferred for several reasons. I've shared a document with the Chair and the Vice Chair explaining the reasons why they've been deferred. But the short answer is to do with officer deadlines. However, we have been assured that it will be presented at the February meeting, and that has been standing now for about 3 months, I believe. Taking that amendment into account, for the sake of procedure and diligence, I will invite the Chair to move and second the minutes with that amendment once more.
Happy to move those. Can I have a seconder? Yeah, Pippa, thank you.
Thank you very much. And now to update and confirm the items for the February meeting. We have the framework for food waste disposal, the local nature recovery strategy, the library's investment plan update, the history centre update, and the Staffordshire bus strategy 6-month update as previously stated. In addition to that, I'd like to provide a general update on changes to the work programme. So the framework for food waste disposal is a work programme item scheduled for the 27th of February 2025. The Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent joint economic strategy has been moved from the 30th of January to the 18th of March, as has the Staffordshire County Council's economic strategy delivery 6-month update. We Are Staffordshire has also been moved from the 30th of January 2025 to the 18th of March 2025. The cultural strategy 6-month update, the date has now been confirmed for the briefing outside of committee, and that will take place on the 19th of February 2025 at 2 p.m. via Teams. And there has also been a confirmed date for the traffic and network management plan for that briefing outside of committee, which will take place on the 11th of March 2025 at 11 a.m. via Teams, and I've sent invites to all members of the committee. And although not on the work programme, just a polite reminder that there is a site visit to Tamworth Library on the 14th of February.
Thank you, Jacob, for the update on the work programme. We'll move on to item 6, which is exclusion of the public. And that I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below. Can I have a move? I've moved it. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Konjic, thank you. And I'll just wait for us to go offline.